Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second LTE internet plan with smartphone plan savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
So it was about 7 or 8 feet tall, and it had hair, not fur, but she said hair all over its body, and it was very dark. There've been a lot of sightings of Bigfoot and other cryptids in this area. Hearing what sounds like a metal door closing or opening before they see a Bigfoot. A lot of people seeing UFOs, a creature they called the Grinning Man, Mothman sightings that just don't make sense. They claim that this guy, this Indrid cold, and he would talk to them like mentally, but his mouth never moved, glowing green eyes, and is very large. They see it a lot at night. They believe he was a time traveler, and he would get out of this flying machine, and he would walk up to people, and they said that he had this weird grin on his face.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of the Unexplained podcast. Today, we're going to have a magical journey into the world of paranormal. I have the pleasure to present Daniel. He is YouTuber and content creator, has a podcast named precisely Magical Journey. Thanks, Daniel, for being here. I appreciate you have accepted my invitation to talk about this fascinating topic you and I love.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate that.
Please present yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about this project, your webpage, social media, so that people know where they can find you.
So my name is Daniel Cahoon. I am the creator of Magical Journey podcast. It is a podcast dedicated to the paranormal. We cover so many different topics related to the paranormal on there. The place you can really find out about me, though, and find out what we're doing about the brand, all things Magical Journey, is magicaljourney.com, which is the website that has all of the ins and outs, the social media. It has ways to contact me to share your stories on the paranormal with me, and be able to get you a spot on the channel. And it also has my merch store, which is really important because that's your way of being able to become my walking, talking billboard to share all sorts of information about the podcast with other people. And that's really that. And of course, my Facebook group, which is a really good place to keep up with the current topics, what we're talking about, what we're offering on the podcast, and to get extra material to go along with those things.
Great, Daniel. Tell us a little bit more about how did you start with this project? Was something that you experienced in the paranormal side that you decided to talk about this? How was that?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Like had experience with the paranormal since I was a kid. Um, Everything from like televisions changing channels on their own to things moving, hearing footsteps and voices in my room. A lot of different things related to the paranormal. Uh, Seeing unidentified objects flying over our house. A lot of interesting experiences over time, and so it really just led me down that road. Reading, learning all kinds of things, watching all sorts of programs about the paranormal, about cryptids and UFOs and that sort of thing. So, and the podcast inevitably just kind of evolved from all of that.
Oh my God. I bet it will be a lot of experiences. So you said since you were like a young age,
Oh,
like
yeah.
5 years old. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking like 5, 6, on up to like 9 and so. So it was,
So, and all these situations happened in a specific house that you lived in, or were in different places, different houses, or I don't know, maybe a school or somewhere else?
a lot of the stuff happened actually in the house I grew up in. There were times when things would happen, around me at school and other places. My grandmother's house it was definitely a little creepy there at times. Um, so yeah, it was kind of a hodgepodge of different places over time that these experiences happened in.
Did you know if somebody else at your house experienced things like you?
Oh yeah, definitely. My stepmother would tell me frequently about hearing footsteps in my room, and she would go and check, and I would be sound asleep. There would be nobody in there. Hearing voices, uh, people talking in my room. Again, she would check. There would be nobody there. There was a couple of times when she uh, got mad at me or whatever, and things would fall off the wall
Oh my.
and so forth. And I would be like, try to tell you, you
Weird.
need to chill out. Don't be so, and it would freak her out every time. She would always get scared about that. Oh, yeah, she definitely experienced it, a few weird things.
Yeah. So do you think, okay, so like for example, I have a son, he has ESP, and no matter where he was, he experienced many things. He was on vacations, different cities, at school, wherever, everywhere.
Uh-huh.
So, do you think you have this gift since you were born, or do you think was partially haunted house or haunted place? And I don't know what do you think about that.
So I do believe that I have gifts that I was born with. There are several people in my family that have experiences with psychic gifts, I guess, for lack of a better word of putting it. Um, and just like being able to pick up on things, around me, messages sometimes that come to me from, uncertain areas and whatever. But yeah, it's definitely been something that has been a part of my life most of my life.
Wow. So, how do you deal with those? Uh, I don't know how to call with those events. Uh, do you have any religion? What are your beliefs? Tell me a little bit more. How can you be during your most of your life experience these type of things? Are you afraid? You got used to?
Yeah, not really. I mean, there's always that little hesitance when things happen. When you experience things, there's always this like kind of, what was that feeling? But as far as being like, scared or put off by these things, it's never really like that. A lot of the television shows and so forth, they try to play up, oh, it's scary, and it's, I think that's people's way of trying to entertain people. For me, though, it's really, I don't want to say a natural occurrence, but definitely a common occurrence. I believe, I do believe in God. I believe that there are, that we do have a life past this life. I believe in reincarnation to a point. So, there's these things that are not explainable in the world, in our universe. There are things that go beyond our understanding. Like, you can't just look at life through our eyes and get the full scope of the experience, because all around us there's life moving, there's energy moving, there's spirits moving all the time. Whether you believe in angels or celestial beings or whatever you want to call them, these things exist beyond our comprehension, beyond being able to just what our eyes are capable of seeing. And I think that's one of the things that's really kept me grounded and kept me sane a lot of times, is the fact that I understand that beyond what I get, what I see, what I experience on a daily basis, what I touch, hear, smell, taste, there's more out there.
Yes, it's a complete spiritual world outside, untangible. We can't see it, but exists. I believe the same. I think it is for me. That is my reality, and you could have different point of views or perspective. Depends of religion. Depends of many situations. So, okay, have you, among all these experiences that you have had, have you seen like a complete apparition of a ghost entity, or just hearing and sensing things?
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
There have been times when I've seen things manifest. It's really strange because we think of ghosts or entities manifesting in different ways all the time, and I've seen things that seem like they are a manifestation, an apparition, some people call it. Definitely there's a sense all the time of people, things, in and around, being able to pick up kind of a feeling, a vibration from people or from things, and being able to see in that sense. And I think that's one of the things that really separates a haunting from from what our typical understanding is of ghost or apparitions is, with a ghost, with an apparition, is something that you'll see and experience. With a haunting, you may have things move, you may hear sounds, you may smell things, like perfume or type of food. My grandmother, I could always tell when my grandmother was around because she loved green apples. And there would always be this really strong smell of green apples whenever she would be around. So that was always interesting.
Yeah, I bet. So do you feel like your grandma is like your guardian angel or something like that, Daniel? When you
I feel like, I mean, guardian angel is kind of an interesting term. I don't know that I would say she's a guardian angel, but she's definitely an ancestor that's with me. I believe we're all surrounded by the ancestors all the time, and they watch over us, they protect us, they guide us, they teach us. And some of them can be, very protective, and honoring the ancestors is a big deal, paying respect and giving them honor and even what's the word I'm looking for? Giving them offerings of peace and opening your life to them, to allow them to come in, and be a part of your world. So I think ancestral working with the ancestors is definitely a big deal. And we do this during the darker part of the year where we get into fall and the final harvest, and some call it Samhain. Some people call it the Day of the Dead, or they'll call it All Hallows Eve. There's a lot of names for this time of year, but it's definitely a time of paying respect and tribute to the ancestors.
Well, both my grandmas passed away time ago, and actually my oldest son saw my mom's mom once, and several things have happened in the family. I could feel her. I've had dreams. Do you think that dreams have meanings or just simple dreams?
Oh, no, I definitely believe that dreams do have meaning and significance. I think sometimes the things that we dream point to very important things in our lives. I think there are messages in our dreams. And I think a lot of times the people and the things that we dream about are very important for us to take heed and pay attention to, because they do have an importance. They do have, just like your grandmother passing down her gift to your son. There's significance there. There's a reason why this would happen. And I think in our dreams, sometimes we're really shown those things.
Yeah, I believe our messages too. Once I was driving, and so I was driving from El Paso, Texas I live in Austin, 25 miles to the east. I was driving and I was feeling very tired, and I was hearing my playlist on Spotify. And so suddenly I was like practically falling asleep, and suddenly I heard a song. Carlos Gardel is the name of the singer from Argentina. I don't remember well, but was one of the songs that my grandma used to hear. And I was like, wait a minute. I mean, because sometimes Spotify, when you hear like a specific genre, it recommends you songs from the same type. So I wasn't hearing that type of songs. I heard that song and I woke up, And I go, why I'm hearing that song? So to me was like a message from my grandma, like taking care of me, saying, hey, wake up, you have to continue. And I was really surprised when I heard. And I remember I stopped and I was like in my car looking why I was getting that song. So to me it's something that I couldn't explain, but to me was like a message, right? Do you do paranormal research?
I do. I do a lot of paranormal research. I do a lot of digging into eh, some of the stuff that people report and experience with some of the area. I mean, like where I live at is literally just surrounded by a ton of places that people experience some really interesting things at. There's been a lot of sightings of Bigfoot and other cryptids in this area.
Where do you live?
I live in a suburb of Nashville called Murfreesboro. So it's like right in central Tennessee. And it's this area is extremely active, very active. So, people experience a lot here. They really do. I've been to parts of, Nashville and other parts of the area where, there's been a lot of things occur over time, a lot of history, Civil War history and so forth that has caused a lot of very interesting things. Some of the things that are really well known here. The Lady in Black at there's a hotel that used to be part of Opryland amusement park. It's called the Opryland Hotel, and then there's also the mall that's attached to it there. Opry Mills, the big shopping area, is right on the place where the theme park used to be. And this land was owned by a family that had it for many, many, many years. And the last surviving member of this family, before she passed, she wanted either an orphanage or a type of school built on the property for children, to help children and to be a safe place for children. And that didn't happen. And she was very upset about that. So, now, people say that they see her walking the halls of the hotel. It's a big resort hotel. It's huge. Or they'll see her walking around in the mall at times, and
Wow.
they refer to her as the Lady in Black. Printer's Alley, which is another area downtown, that's very well known for having some interesting experiences. There's, people who have been seen there, who've passed, and so Printer's Alley is known for being a haunted spot. It's just all of downtown seems like it's just a hotbed. That was where parts of the war were fought at. And so there is a lot of experiences with Confederate soldiers, Union soldiers being seen there.
Yeah, I've heard that, Daniel.
Yeah.
I have a cousin. He lives actually, not sure if it's Nashville, but in the surrounded areas from Nashville. And actually, yeah, I got an episode talking about him because he has ESP as well. He has all kind of apparitions, sensing, and yeah, he told me something about, because of the war, there are a lot of histories about paranormal stuff in that area. But you mentioned something that caught my attention, Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Do you have any story about him? I mean, I've seen a lot of them, right? Uh, but have you known, like, for example, somebody have called you saying, hey, come over to do the research here because we saw Bigfoot or we found something like I don't know, a footprint or something?
We have had in this area, we've had several daylight sightings of him. One that's really well known, two 12-year-old children, a boy and a girl, were walking through an area one day, and this was only about 30 minutes from me. And the little girl got a little ahead of the boy, and when she turned the corner, she saw this thing that was very tall. She said it was about 7 or 8 feet tall, and it had hair, not fur, but she said hair all over its body, and it was very dark and it was very scary to them. So, and this was in broad daylight. This was not a nighttime thing. This wasn't in the evening. Sun wasn't setting. This was daylight.
Oh my!
And they reported this to their parents, to the adults, and the adults went to check it out, of course, but there's several reports like that throughout this area of people seeing things, big hairy creatures, sometimes hearing things. They give kind of almost like a hoot or a vocalization that sounds almost like a primate kind of. So, people would hear them at times making noises and so forth. They've been known to, come around on people's property, and people will see them close to their homes and so forth. So it can be a little bit troublesome.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it is definitely part of the culture here and part of the experience of here. And there's just a lot of the history from here all the way to East Tennessee. Stories of, creatures like they call old green eyes and all sorts of little beasties.
Old green eyes?
Yeah. Old green eyes is a creature that is known to be around the Chattanooga area, Chickamauga battlefield, Lookout Mountain in that area. The reports of old green eyes, obviously they focus on the fact that this thing has glowing green eyes and is very large. They see it a lot at night. And it's kind of a mystery. It's something that we really don't know a lot about other than the stories that we're told about it. But it definitely haunts the battlefield. We do know that. There's a lot of sightings of old green eyes around the Chickamauga battlefield and Lookout Mountain area.
Oh, wow. Never heard about that.
Yeah.
I'm from Mexico, and okay, I'm getting used to the names like a skinwalker or like a rougarou. My husband is from Louisiana.
Yeah, the rougarou, yeah.
So, but what do you think about Bigfoot? Because I'm going to tell what I believe. It is weird that we haven't found, or I'm not going to say scientists because, again, we're talking about paranormal, right? This is out of science, and many people, don't believe in this. I would say researchers, I've never seen or I've never heard something about, oh, look, we found a skeleton from a huge type of cryptid or with a similar characteristics from Bigfoot, very tall creature. So, what do you think about that? My perspective, I was telling the other day to my husband, could be maybe from another planet. We haven't found anything dead, like oh, look at the fur, or look at the hair, look something, anything to indicates that could be this huge creature. It is just known because people have seen it, but nothing like a tangible thing except footprints. What do you think about that? Maybe my theory is crazy, but
No, not at all, actually, because there's several things that people, we've talked about, we've learned over time about Bigfoot. First of all, it's difficult. You can get samples of hair from trees, from tape, that sort of thing. You can get saliva from where they've eaten food, and that sort of thing, to trace their DNA somewhat. One of the things about the hair on Bigfoot, though, is you have to get, like, not just the follicle of hair, but you have to get, like, the root of the hair as well in order to be able to get DNA. And that's where things become a little complicated, because when they've done tests on the DNA on Bigfoot, they find partial human DNA in the creature.
wow.
And then there's a percentage that is called unknown. They don't know where it comes from. It's interesting, when they talk about the DNA, primarily the DNA seems to be from a female, from the mother's side, and an unknown DNA on the father's side. So it's very interesting when it comes to, the tracing the DNA, the genome
Okay.
of Bigfoot. A lot of people, talk about hearing what sounds like, a metal door closing or opening before they see a Bigfoot, or they talk about it looking like they walk through portals or whatever to appear. Some people refer to them as having the ability to camouflage. There's this belief that some of their hair is translucent almost. So when they turn a certain way or whatever, they almost seem to disappear. Like if you see, sometimes you'll see photos where you'll see a real rough image that looks like something not quite right there, but you can't really tell what it is. You can just see like an outline or a really fuzzy image of something standing there very calmly and very quietly. We haven't, as far as like, finding a body or something like that, or finding, like you said, finding a skeleton or something, we haven't to date really had that experience where we can go, oh, that, is a deceased Bigfoot. But like I said, there are several things that we have come across, things that we do know exist, that lead us to believe. It's not necessarily a question of, is there a Bigfoot? Does Bigfoot exist? It's, what is Bigfoot, and what exactly can we learn from this creature? What is it about? What is this creature? What can it do? What can it not do? Where is it from? A lot of questions that we can glean from learning about the creature and how they act, what they do, where they live, where they don't live. There's been a lot of, people have found a lot of structures, things woven together, like almost like a shelter woven together out of trees and tree parts.
Interesting.
Yeah, one of the things that's very interesting is the really high up tree breaks, where it looks like something has twisted a tree, around to actually break it, and it's very high up. They've also found instances where they found whole trees that had been like uprooted, pulled up out of the ground, and stuck into the ground very deep in the ground with the roots up in the air, or trees forming X's and so forth like that. So they found a lot of evidence that suggests things about Bigfoot, but we haven't really been able to interpret what they mean sometimes. That's the big thing, is what does any of this really mean?
Yeah, completely unknown and out of the logical explanation. There is a really interesting documentary. I think it's the name, The Yeti Massacre. It's about this group of young people that went hiking. I think not sure it was Russia, Ukraine. I don't remember. But so this documentary is about the theory that what could have happened to this group of people, because they died very tragically, and something like a smashed the skulls, for example, and something really out of this world. And it's so interesting, and oh my God, many questions. So when you go to do paranormal research, because I saw like a article in your blog about what should I have known, or what should I don't remember the details before to do the paranormal research. So tell me a little bit more about how those paranormal researches are performed.
It's really interesting, actually, because there's so many different techniques, so many different types of equipment that you can use now in researching and studying the paranormal. There's devices that you can use to try to communicate, devices that pick up heat and so forth like that. There's devices that pick up sound, like you can use what's called a spirit box to pick up voices, and tape recording to catch what we call EVP, and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of different, we have a lot of toys now we can play with to reach out to get evidence, video, photography evidence, the photographic evidence is a big deal sometimes. Video, very big deal. There's a lot of things that you can pick up on video, like night vision cameras and so forth like that you normally would not see with the naked eye. So there's a lot of important things to kind of wrap your head around before you start doing research. It's like, and when I did the one video about things I wish I would have known before, this is one of the things I talk about is, things like being able to use cat balls to get them to light up the cat balls to say yes and no or whatever.
Sorry. Cat bulbs?
Yeah, like they're little plastic balls that have like a sensor in them, and when you touch them, they light up. The lights will start like flickering.
Okay.
And that's a really good device to use for, getting them to communicate with you.
How do you spell that? CAP? C-A-P?
Cat, C-A-T.
C-A-T.
Calls.
Cat
Yeah.
calls. Okay,
Yeah.
never heard about that.
They're actually really inexpensive. They have a little red button on them. You press it down, you set it on the table, and if they're touched or messed with in any way, they'll react to that and the lights will start flickering in
Blinking?
them.
Okay.
There's another device called a REM pod, which is basically just like a black and red box or disc, and it has an antenna on it. And when something gets close to the antenna, it starts responding. Like you'll beep and the lights will flicker on it. And some people love to use things like the dowsing rods that go back and forth to communicate with them. There's just so many different things that you can use, to try to communicate with them. There's a device called the dead bell, which is like this bell that sits on like you have at hotels and so forth. It sits on a counter, and if you tap it, it rings. They'll use that at times to communicate. If you ask them a question, they'll ring the bell.
Yeah. So those roads, Daniel, my husband and I went to a tour to a haunted Masonic lodge in San Antonio, Texas. And there was a couple there using those roads, asking questions. One of the person, I don't remember I don't remember who was this person, but he used to go to this Masonic lodge, and he was sharing a lot of experiences he had there and telling stories about other people that experienced apparitions there. So yeah, with the roads, this couple, they were asking questions. Don't remember exactly the questions, but the roads were like a toom. And we were there. I took pictures. Actually, I took some videos where you can see a lot of orbs there. That was so interesting in that Masonic lodge. And we went outside of that place. There is a huge canal over there. It's part of the, I think, river walk. And we took pictures and we captured things like a weird, like a orbs. So interesting. Have you captured any spooky EVP during those researches?
I haven't really caught an EVP yet that was like really made me go wow. I have had experiences where I've caught images or whatever on video. I've done lives before where I've caught various things. Definitely caught things playing with the equipment at times before, and I thought that was very interesting. Like K2 meters will light up from green to red, and I've caught those happening a few times. And so you definitely, the experiences are pretty vast, and you can the way that the spirits interact with them, or whatever they are. I assume they're spirits. Interact with these things. It's very interesting. But it's like here, it's so much like they're in Mexico, where you have so many people who practice witchcraft, or you have you have a lot of sightings of the little people. What do you call it? The lucha
Lucha libre, yes, wrestling.
Yeah, and a lot of the stories about the little people are all over the place here.
Oh, aluches, or maybe goblins or something like that.
Yeah, the aluches. Yeah.
Oh my.
And the thing with that is, like you say, like people get really sick sometime when they come in contact with this thing. And so they can, there's a lot of things that happen with that. And I think that's one of the things we have in the area where I live at. There's an ongoing debate that happens every so often. There's like all these thousands and thousands of little graves that they found all over the place.
Oh my God.
In the hills and the mountain areas there. And, and some of them are like 36 inches. They're not very big at all. And they found thousands of these everywhere, cemeteries of them all over the place. And, and people, have talked about, are the pygmy graves, as they call them, real? They call them pygmy graves because they're the little people.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a lot of very similar stories, a lot of similar folklore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some of the things, like, I haven't really caught a lot of stuff like that. I really would love to. I'd love to see, like, a picture of something like that, or catch his voice or something. But I haven't had a chance to really do that yet. But there's a lot. I mean, the folklore.
Yeah,
The
it
stories,
is.
so many stories.
I know. And when you said Mexico, yeah, it is like I think here in US is more like these beings like cryptids. In Mexico is nahuales. So yeah, is to talk about long conversation about nahuales, but it is part of the folklore, is part of witchcraft as well. So many stories. So talking about these same cryptids, have you heard about Mothman? That was once in Point Pleasant, Virginia.
Yeah, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Mothman is a very big legend. Actually, Chicago, Illinois, has had a lot of sightings of Mothman. There's an area there in Chicago they call Little Village that is very has had a lot of sightings. It's a very heavy populated Latino area. Lot of sightings of the Mothman there at O'Hara Airport. They've seen a lot of sightings of the Mothman there.
Wow.
As well. But definitely Point Pleasant, that was the OG spot for the Mothman back in the 1950s or so.
50 something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when the Silver Bridge collapsed. That was a big deal, and there have been reports of Mothman in New York during the time of the World Trade Center. There's stories about the Mothman being seen in Ukraine during when Chernobyl happened.
It seems what I've heard is when, these apparitions from Mothman occur when something is going to happen, like a prophecy stuff, with the Silver Bridge, for example, and other situations. Yeah, I've heard also about Chicago. So I travel often there for work, and all the time I want to go and see and look. Brought my attention this cryptid, and I kept thinking that maybe it's part of another planet as well, like a Bigfoot, or like you mentioned, are coming from another dimension through a portal or something. I don't know. What do you think?
With the Mothman, it's very interesting because there were a lot of experiences that happened around the Mothman sightings that just don't make sense. A lot of people seeing UFOs, There was a lot of like experiences with people seeing this creature they called the Grinning Man. Indrid Cold is what he went by. They claimed that this guy, this Indrid Cold.
Yeah, Indrid Cold is the name. It is true. It is like a time traveler or something like that, right?
They believe he was a time traveler, and he would get out of this flying machine, and he would walk up to people, and they said that he had this weird grin on his face, and he would talk to them like mentally, but his mouth never moved. And it was just a very eerie experience with him, and he would explain, that he was from a different place, and stuff like that. And just like the stories of Indrid Cold was very, very unique. It was a very unique experience. The thing that really kind of boggled my mind about the Mothman was, you had everything from, people having, UFOs flying over their heads to, seeing this creature with these big red eyes to, seeing poltergeist and all kinds of things going on there. So it was just a lot of different kinds of activity there in that area at the time. And it was very confusing. It was a very, very confusing time for people.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there is a movie with Richard Gere about Mothman. Mothman Prophecy is the name. Is the way that I knew about this Mothman creature. And after that movie, I was like investigating and reading, and oh my God, it was so interesting. So now that you mentioned UFOs, have you had any experience? Tell me something about it.
So probably the only like real first experience that I was like 9-10 years old, and I remember it was at night. It was during the fall or winter, because it was cold outside. Where I lived at, it was a small town, had one little convenience store that had like a gas station and a convenience store. You get anything you wanted there. You get good school supplies, food, milk, whatever you wanted, you could find there. And it was a big deal. Like when mom and dad said, hey, let's go to the convenience store to get this or that, it was a big deal. So, my folks said, hey, we want to go down to the store, get ready. And so, of course, I went. I grabbed my jacket and my shoes. I got ready. I went out, stood by the car waiting on them. And I always liked to look up at the sky at night. I don't know why. I just always did. I like to watch the stars. And where we were at, like right across the street, there was this big group of pine trees, big, tall pine trees. And there were a lot of them, and they seemed to go on forever. And then there was a field where they had cotton that grew during the summertime. The field didn't have anything in it at that point because it was cold and it was after the season. But I was looking out over that way, and these 4 big orange, almost football-shaped things were flying overhead in they were like a box almost. They were flying like in a box formation, and they went toward, they went north, from north to south is how they went. And
llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrenta a sus rivales, enfrenta a tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So the shape was like a square, like a rectangular shape?
Well, they were flying in that pattern. You know, they were actually shaped like I said, big orange footballs. They looked like illuminated orange footballs, and they were huge. They were huge, and all four of them were flying, like I said, side by side in a box formation. And that was the first time that I ever saw anything like that. And you know, of course, I'm thinking to myself, I can never tell anybody I just saw this. You know,
it is
here I am
insane.
a kid. Oh yeah, you know, here I am a kid, and I'm going, I really can't. Nobody needs to know this. But it's like you hear a lot.
Were you alone when you saw it?
Yeah,
Nobody else.
I was just standing out by the car, waiting on everybody to come out so we could go to the store. You know, and here I am, you know, going, whoa, wow, yeah, what's that? You know, it was quite an experience.
So you didn't ask, I mean, your siblings, your mom or dad or whatever, other people that was with you, you didn't ask them?
No, I did not want them. I did not. The last thing I wanted them to do is say, oh my gosh, you're like seeing things now, you know. Wow. It's like, you know, because people would talk back then. They would talk a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like the reports that you hear, you know, people talking about a lot, you know, in Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, a lot of these places like that in the South, you know, it's very similar sometimes to some of the stuff that you hear about, and you know, in South America, you know, the clusters of flying objects, and you know, and you know, people seeing these things that. The thing that's really weird to me are the flying humanoid things that people see. I've never seen one of those, thank goodness. I don't know how I would feel about that.
Oh my goodness.
You know, but you see video of them all the time, and you hear stories about people saying, you know, I saw this person flying through the air over the city or whatever. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. This topic about UFOs, I don't know, for any reason, I'm scared. More than any other type of, like a ghost, apparition, entities. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I know there are more possibilities to, to be visited for one of them. I don't know. It's something that really terrifies me. We're friends on Facebook. She experienced really spooky story. Actually, there is an episode. It's in Spanish. I'm translating the episodes into English. I'm in the number 12, I think so. This is probably the 30 something, don't remember. Well, she told me she was about to sleep. Suddenly, when opened the eyes, she saw a alien figure next to her bed. She had headache at that time, severe headache, and she said that this being stand his or her arm and touched her forehead, and there was like a communication, like a mentally, no syllable, no nothing came out from the mouth, and she didn't remember exactly what they said, but that pain went away immediately when this being touched her, and the only thing she did is say thank you, and she wanted to tell to her husband, but her husband was falling asleep. And oh my God, is when I that story, Daniel, I read it. I'm on a Facebook group talking. No, we were. This group is a different. It's a women's
Right.
group, but somebody asked, "Hey, have you all had any paranormal or UFO experience?" So when I read it, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I have to tell on my podcast." And I asked her permission. Hey, can I share your experience here? And she was so nice, and she said, "Yeah, you can do it. It is so interesting." Oh my God, many things happened to her, but that is just one example. So
Yeah, it can be
unknown and
very,
amazed. Yeah.
it can be very, very scary experiences. I've heard a lot of people, talk about some stuff that just really was kind of very, very scary and very nerve-wracking for them. And I just go, wow, I'm glad I didn't experience that.
Yeah, I know. So have you known any like a type of abduction story that could be scared?
I personally have not known of any people who claim to be abducted or whatever, but I have heard of them. I know there are stories out there of people who have been abducted, and it can be quite an experience for them. I know. One of the things that I did hear was about a place on the East Coast that was like it was a communications place, and a communication facility. And this group of people, there was a shift at work. They were getting ready to end their day, and another shift coming on. And people were in the parking lot. They were trying to get out of their cars to go into work. There were people coming through the gates, to start their day and so forth. And, it seemed like a normal day to them. And then all of a sudden, the next thing they remember is, reaching over to grab their drink from their desk to take a drink, and there was like perspiration on the cup, and the ice had melted, or, they had, there were people that, said they were at their computer, and the computer, had something completely different on it than whenever they saw the screen last. Some of them said their computers had actually shut down, that their computers had logged them out for the day already.
Wow.
And stuff. And there were people that were at their time clocks getting ready to clock in, that they looked down at the time clock and realized that they were really late clocking in, and so forth. And so all of these, nothing seemed right about that whole experience. And they went back and they looked at the video, the cameras from that time, and what they saw was like people like getting up from their desk, and they had blank expressions on their face. They just looked like they were not there, and they were like coming out of their offices, all walking in single file down the hall towards something, and this was happening all over the facility.
Wow.
And then again, like I said, when they came to later, they realized that there had been hours missing. So when you talk about abduction stories, it can be very scary. It can be I think there's a lot of amazing things that happen, that people report happening, that we just don't understand. I think it's very hard for us to wrap our head, in our minds.
Process, to process all, because it is something that, how can you explain it, right?
Right. Or, if you missing time. I mean, you're sitting there minding your own business, doing something. Maybe you're playing with your kids, or you're playing with your pet, or you're watching television, or you're whatever you're doing. Maybe you're in kitchen cooking or whatever. And the next thing you know, you're coming back and nothing is like what you left it at, and you're going, wow, food is burning on the stove, all kinds of things happening.
Yeah, I know it is. Well, yeah, it's definitely. I mean, there are many things, like I said on my podcast, there are a lot of things, enigmas in this universe. And many situations, we have videos, we have EVPs, people claim seeing things. There are evidence out there, but unfortunately, science can't prove, right? It's still paranormal, still unknown. There are just theories, and every person interprets in a different way, depending the perspective, depending, I don't know. So people believe are entities, demons, or people think, oh no, those are beings from other worlds, blowing your brain because you want to have an explanation. It is hard to get it.
Yeah. All of what I do is about searching for answers, looking for answers to, what we're dealing with, why we're dealing with it, all of the things. I mean, there's so many. Sometimes when you learn something, you wind up with more questions than you have answers.
Yes, definitely. And this is not gonna end soon because many things happened every day. There are many stories. There is a TV show very famous in Travel Channel. I like that channel. I think is these woods are haunted. All kind of cryptids, Bigfoot, many stories, ghosts, apparitions, etc., and UFOs. So, well, Daniel, if you want to share last story before to close the episode, something that you think change your life, or something that shocked you to the point that, oh my God, what am I doing paranormal research?
So I think the thing that really brought me full circle was living in a place in Nashville called Hermitage, and it was less than a mile away from Andrew Jackson's home, the Hermitage. Just so many experiences I had in that house and in that neighborhood with the paranormal, and and getting them to interact with the equipment and so forth, and getting photographs and so forth of these things. And I think that the thing that really brought me to the point of going, what am I doing here? Is I remember being out one night, and it was a full moon, and I was standing on the back deck, and it was one of those nights where it was just cool enough to be comfortable, if that makes sense. And I was out there, I was just kind of like taking it all in, and I heard something really big coming, like it felt like it was like literally pushing its way through the trees toward me, and it was big. It was really big. And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, what is this? And what's it doing? And I backed up against the door, and I remember putting my hand out and going, stop. And it right where it was at, it just stopped. I didn't hear anything else. I didn't feel anything else. It was just dead silence all of a sudden. And I thought to myself, this is not okay. And I went back in the house, and I spent a lot of time that night thinking about, what are you doing? What is the reason why you're doing the stuff you're doing? And, and what do you hope to get out of any of this? And it was in that whole experience that I decided for myself, I don't know what the final answer is. I don't even know if there is a final answer, but I do know that there are questions and there are answers out there to those questions. And I can either live in the state of fear and dread, or I can live with the acceptance of wanting to learn what's out there and the truth behind what's out there. And that really is why I do the things I do, and why I have the podcast that I have, is to learn about the truth and what is true.
Daniel, let me tell you that when I started this podcast, initially I wanted to write a book, especially because my son, during his childhood, he saw a lot of things. And then when I got this experience with my friend that passed away, I felt it. I felt her. There was something so intense, so heavy. I was almost dying of a heart attack. And I knew that something else after death, something else after you died is there, because there is no other explanation. Something happened after we died. To me, to have these collaborations with other podcasters about these topics, sharing experiences and sharing thoughts is important, because every time you are learning about those experiences and so, like in your case, when you were in this situation, like you didn't know what was that, you think that put a boundary help you to stop that? Because I've heard like people with this ESP condition, like my cousin that lives in Tennessee, and he has told me, you have to put like a boundaries, because these entities, or whatever you want to call it, are there. So, and you have to tell them, you have to talk firmly, don't come, or this is my home, my house, this is my home, you are not allowed to be here. So, and it seems like when you said stop, that worked, right? It is interesting. All right, Daniel, thank you so much for being here again. Really appreciate your time. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Tell us one more time the webpage, the name of your podcast, and all the details so that people know where they can find you.
The podcast is Magical Journey Podcast on YouTube. The website is magicaljourney.com, and you can find all of the stuff related to my social media, how to contact me, all of those things, all the things on magicaljourney.com.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. And to my listeners, thank you for hearing the complete episode. Thank you so much, and see you all next in the Unexplained story.
Thank you.